Hey YouTube, Hapless here. Going to give a quick tutorial on stippling an AR-15 grip. Now this is pretty similar to anything that you'd use as far as another type of polymer pistol. You could do the same type of thing. The reason I'm doing this one is, you know, this is the standard grip that comes with a lot of kits if you're putting together an AR. And, you know, most guys take this off of there first thing and replace it with, you know, some type of other grip. I've used Ergos, I've used Magpul, and they all make a good product. There's nothing wrong with it, to be honest with you. Now I will admit I'm one of the, I guess the 1% of guys that this thing actually fits pretty decent for. I don't even mind this little finger groove or anything like that. It's not a big deal. But I have to admit that it's not very grippy as far as being able to get a good solid grip on your weapon. And so this is one of the things that I used to upgrade. But since I've got another one laying around, I thought I'd go ahead and give it a shot at stippling it. I will say it's not a bad grip, and to be honest with you, it does everything that I need. You know, a lot of guys want to upgrade because of all the extra little features, right? You got the battery compartments and things like that that Magpul puts out, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, they have kind of a neat little thing there. But I've just found personally, whether I've been training or just going to the range or whatever the case may be, whatever I'm prepping up for, I haven't ever once needed to use the compartment. Whether you throw an extra bolt in there or you throw in some batteries or whatever the case may be, I guess the two scenarios that you might need that is one, during some training or at the range, which in theory you'd have your range bag there, right? So why do you need to throw extra stuff on your weapon? Or two, I guess if you were in the middle of some bad stuff, you were in the middle of you know, a firefight, and then I questioned, so if you're in the middle of a firefight, are you going to take the time to change your batteries? Are you going to take the time to replace your bolt? No, you know, if your bolt's down, you're probably going to your secondary weapon. Hopefully you have one. And if your batteries are down, then you're probably flipping to your iron sights. And if your AR is not set up that way, then I would recommend that you set it up that way. So anyways, just for me personally, the battery compartments have never been a big deal to me. You didn't come here to hear about all that philosophy. You just came to see how you go about stippling up a grip. And so we're going to go ahead and move on to that. Let's just go over the items that you'll need. Of course, you'll need some type of grip. I will say, you know, they mess these things up every now and again, just as with anything that's manufactured. So test fit this on your weapon before you put any work into it. So that doesn't apply to you if you're taking one off and you're just going to stipple it up. But if you're buying one and you're going to stipple it up, go ahead and test fit it on your weapon real quick, because you would hate to put in however long it's going to take us to stipple this thing up and then find out that it doesn't fit perfectly on your weapon. You'll probably want some eye protection here. I have a wood engraver here, and I chose to go with this over soldering iron. You can go with the soldering iron as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I found with the wood engravers, it came, this was by Harbor Freight, by the way, and I'll put a link in the description, but it came with a bunch of extra little, I don't know, Bernie doodads, whatever they're called, engraving pieces. And so you can actually trade those out. So today, for example, we kind of have this like leaf-like scalloped looking design, and that's kind of what I'll go with. Now, you'll also probably want to have some type of Dremel. Alternatively, you could use a belt sander or something like that and have pretty quick results with that. But you know, as my old shop teacher used to say, you know, the more powerful the tool you use, the more likely it is you're going to screw it up. So I'm just going to go with a Dremel with a sanding drum on it, and I will be running at the very slowest speed that my Dremel allows me to go, because the risk with messing with this kind of thing is that you end up basically heating up the plastic so much that you cause little divots and whatnot, and that's tough to sand out. So try to avoid that if you can. And let's just talk through the overall process. So the way we start is we want a clean slate before we start stippling. Now, if you're just going to come in and on whatever weapon you're talking about, you just want to go ahead and stipple up the smooth parts, then you can go ahead and get started and skip ahead to that part of the video where we're starting to do some stippling. Now, if you're working with something like this and you're going to go over, for example, this area, then you want to go ahead and sand all that down. If you don't, what ends up happening to you is you can still stipple it, but you will notice slight differences, a variation in the pattern than you would have here. And you know what, maybe that'll look cool, I don't know, but I'm going for kind of a cleaner look, and so that's why I'm going to go ahead and sand all this off. Some guys, and you can, go ahead and sand off this finger groove. I'm not going to, because like I said, I'm one of the weirdos that this thing actually fits okay for. So I'll probably stipple this whole area, but I will leave the finger groove on there. If you're going to take this off, it's pretty straightforward. You could do it with the Dremel. Once again, the belt sander would be a good option for you as well. That'll take that thing right off of there. You could take this piece off of there too if you're so inclined. So anyways, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and throw on the safety protection here and the safety glasses and go ahead and start sanding. So here we go, guys. All right, guys, pretty quick and easy. So we went ahead and sanded all that stuff smooth. You could go ahead and sand in this area as well, but I'm not going to mess with that today. I'm going to go ahead and just stipple up this whole little area right here. I'm going to go ahead and rinse this thing off, and then I'll be back and we'll start the stippling process. All right, guys, we got her all cleaned up, and you can tell we got all of that factory stippling off of there. Looks pretty good, to be honest with you, but let's go ahead and see if we can't mess it up some more. So I've got my wood engraver heating up right here. Now, if you have a fancy soldering iron, it might have various heat settings on it, so you might have to play with that. The only thing I'll recommend to you is we're going to start playing with this thing on the bottom in a less conspicuous area, just so we can kind of test to make sure our iron's good and hot, and also kind of get our pattern down a little bit. And so that's the only advice I'd give you, is just, you know, test it out a little bit before you get onto a surface area that's going to be highly visible. And you know, no one else is going to care, but it'll annoy you because you'll know it's there. So we're just going to touch it just like that and see if we're hot enough. And whoo, you can barely tell it, but it is melting it just slightly. Now I want it to go a little bit deeper than that, so we're going to play with this just a little bit more until we get it good and hot the way we want to. But basically, you're just going to go down the way. And the key here, guys, is consistency. The better you keep your spacing and the better you keep your tool oriented, the better off it's going to end up being. So we're just going to go through like that and see how that turns out and keep going. All right, guys, almost done here. Just finishing up the last little bit. Getting that last little grip here. Okay, let me set this guy down off camera here. Try not to burn the house down while I'm doing it. All right, and there we have it, guys. Let's see if we can get that in frame for you. I think it turned out really well. I'm very pleased with it. And I will tell you that, man, this thing is like sandpaper right now. Speaking of which, last little tip for you is, you know, as you're doing this, if you get to the point where you feel like the texture that you put down was too much for you, you can always go back, I would say, with a, you know, a couple thousand grit sandpaper, you know, something that's, you know, pretty fine, and you can knock down some of these edges and you'll still get that that look that you're going for, but it won't be as aggressive. So, you know, you can dial that into your personal preference, but I'm very happy with it, guys. So we're going to throw this on an AR and go about our business. So Hapless 81 signing off, guys. Take care.